The year was 2136, and humanity stood on the precipice of a new era. Decades of deep space exploration had finally borne fruit when a distant probe, floating near the Alpha Centauri system, detected the unmistakable signs of intelligent life. A planetary civilization thriving on a world called Xylith Prime had revealed itself, and the discovery had rocked Earth to its core. Governments, scientists, and even the most skeptical minds across the globe were unified in anticipation. Humanity was no longer alone. Eva Norwood sat quietly in her quarters aboard the Horizon, a sleek diplomatic vessel bound for Xylith Prime. The room hummed softly with the vibration of the ship's engines, the faint glow of starlight spilling in through the reinforced window. She stared out into the black abyss, her thoughts far from the excitement and historic significance of the mission. At 32, Eva had spent her career as a xenobiologist, specializing in alien ecosystems though, until now. The only alien life she had ever studied were microbial remnants on Mars and fossils trapped in ancient asteroids. But she was more than just a researcher. Eva was different, though no one on Earth knew just how different. From the age of 5, Eva had discovered she wasn't like other children. She could sense the electric hum of energy around her, manipulate objects with her mind, and even alter the very fabric of time, though only for a few seconds at a time. At first, these abilities had frightened her, and for good reason. Her parents, terrified of what she might become, had urged her to hide her powers. They feared that the world, if it knew, would seek to exploit her or worse, destroy her. Eva had learned to suppress her abilities, burying them deep, trying to live a normal life. But nothing about her was normal. Not then, and certainly not now. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts, and the ship's AI announced, "Arrival at Xylith Prime in 5 hours. Diplomatic team, please prepare for docking procedures." Eva sighed and closed her eyes, feeling the stirrings of her powers just beneath the surface. She had trained herself to control them, but lately, as the ship neared Xylith Prime, something had shifted. It was as though the energy fields around the alien planet were resonating with her own. A low hum that only she could hear vibrated in the back of her mind, growing stronger by the hour. She didn't know what it meant, but she knew she had to stay vigilant. No one, not even her closest colleagues, knew about her abilities. If the Xylith somehow sensed her power, everything could go wrong. She stood, straightened her uniform, and headed to the briefing room. As she walked through the narrow corridors of the ship, she passed other members of the delegation, diplomats, scientists, military officers. They nodded politely but remained focused on their preparations. This mission was monumental. For the first time in human history, they were about to meet an advanced alien race, and every step, every word, could determine the fate of both civilizations. In the briefing room, the atmosphere was tense but electric. The human ambassador, a gray-haired man named Samuel Grayson, stood at the head of the table, reviewing the final communication protocols. Around him, various experts discussed cultural customs, technological advancements, and the nuances of alien diplomacy. Eva took her seat near the back, preferring to observe rather than participate. "This is a historic moment," Ambassador Grayson began, his voice steady but laced with the weight of responsibility. "The Xylith have been incredibly welcoming so far, but we can't take anything for granted. Our goal is peaceful cooperation, mutual exchange of knowledge. We must tread carefully." The holographic projection in the center of the table flickered to life, displaying a rotating image of Xylith Prime. The planet was a beautiful mix of blue oceans, green continents, and swirling clouds eerily similar to Earth. But what stood out were the massive, glowing structures that dotted the surface. These were Xylith cities, vast and intricate, powered by an energy source humanity had yet to understand. "According to what we've learned from the transmissions," Grayson continued, "the Xylith are centuries ahead of us in terms of technology. They've achieved stable interstellar travel, and their cities are powered by something we can't even begin to comprehend. But they've shown no signs of hostility. Their message was clear: they wished to establish peaceful relations. That's why we're here." As Grayson spoke, Eva couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The Xylith's outward hospitality was almost too perfect. Aliens this advanced would surely see humanity as primitive, inferior. Why, then, were they so eager to welcome them? Her thoughts were interrupted by Dr. Jensen, a fellow scientist, who leaned over and whispered, "You look like you've seen a ghost, Eva. You all right?" Eva forced a smile and nodded. "Just nervous, I guess. First contact with an alien species, it's a lot to take in." Jensen chuckled. "Yeah, I get that. But this is the opportunity of a lifetime. Imagine what we'll learn." Eva nodded again but said nothing. She wished she could share his enthusiasm, but the low hum in her mind was growing louder, more insistent. Something was coming, and it wasn't just the landing. Hours later, the horizon approached Xylith Prime's orbit, and the crew gathered at the observation deck. Through the reinforced glass, they could see the alien planet in all its glory, the capital city glowing like a jewel beneath them. The Xylith had sent a shuttle to guide the humans down to the surface. Everyone on board was buzzing with anticipation, but Eva felt only unease. As the human delegation boarded the shuttle, Eva found herself seated next to Grayson. The ambassador glanced at her, sensing her tension. "You'll do fine, Eva," he said, misinterpreting her nerves. "Just stick to the science. The Xylith seem fascinated by our biology. You're going to be a key part of this mission." Eva nodded but remained silent. Her powers were stirring again, reacting to the alien environment. She didn't know what was causing the disturbance, but she knew one thing for sure: the Xylith had no idea what she was capable of. As the shuttle descended toward the surface, Eva gazed out at the sprawling alien city below, her heart pounding in her chest. First contact was about to begin, and none of them realized the true danger that had just arrived on Xylith Prime. It was her. The alien city of Calithrian was breathtaking. Towering spires of luminescent metal spiraled upward into the clouds, casting a pale blue glow across the landscape. The Xylith capital thrummed with life, a symphony of energy and technology, where every surface seemed to pulse with a subtle, otherworldly power. Eva Norwood stood among her fellow humans, trying to absorb the grandeur while keeping her mind focused. Yet the strange hum in her thoughts had only grown louder since their descent, making it difficult for her to concentrate. The Xylith delegation awaited them at the base of a colossal structure, its surface shimmering like liquid silver. Leading the Xylith was Archon Cray, a tall, lithe figure with pale, luminous skin and eyes that glowed with intelligence. His long robes, made from a material that seemed to flow like water, swayed gently in the breeze. Next to him stood several high-ranking Xylith officials and scientists, each one radiating an aura of quiet authority. As the human ambassador, Samuel Grayson, stepped forward to greet the Xylith leader, Eva tried to steady herself. She could feel the energy of the city swirling around her, pressing in on her mind. Her powers, usually dormant and under tight control, were responding to the environment in ways she couldn't predict. "Welcome to Xylith Prime," Archon Cray said in perfect English, his voice smooth and calm. "We are honored by your presence, and we look forward to a long and prosperous relationship between our species." Grayson smiled warmly and extended his hand. "Thank you, Archon Cray. We share your hope for peaceful cooperation and mutual understanding." The two leaders exchanged formal greetings, while the rest of the delegation mingled, engaging in polite conversation with their alien counterparts. Eva, however, hung back, feeling increasingly out of place. She was aware of her surroundings, but also acutely attuned to the strange undercurrent of power running through the city and energy that seemed to be calling to her. A Xylith scientist named Zarvok approached her. His skin was darker than the others, almost a deep shade of blue, and his eyes glowed faintly in the twilight. He was one of the few Xylith who had shown particular interest in humanity's biology, and over the last few days, he and Eva had exchanged a few words about their respective fields of study. "You seem troubled, human," Zarvok said, tilting his head in curiosity. Is something about our city overwhelming to you? Eva forced a smile, trying to appear calm. It's just so different from anything we've ever seen. The energy here, your technology, it's all so advanced. It takes some getting used to. Zarvok nodded. I understand. Our cities are powered by what you might call a type of living energy. It is more than just technology, it flows through everything here, including us. Perhaps your human senses are simply adjusting to its presence. Perhaps, Eva murmured, though she knew it was more than that. The energy of Xylith Prime wasn't just affecting her physically, it was interacting with her powers, amplifying them in ways she had never experienced before. She could feel the pull, like a magnet, drawing her deeper into the heart of the city. The sensation was unnerving, and she wasn't sure how much longer she could suppress it. That night, the human delegation was invited to a grand banquet in the central dome of Calithrian. The Xylith were gracious hosts, offering delicacies that shimmered on plates of translucent crystal and beverages that glowed softly in the dim light. It was a scene of diplomacy at its finest, with humans and Xylith exchanging pleasantries and discussing the future. Eva, however, couldn't shake her growing anxiety. Every time she tried to relax, the hum in her mind surged, forcing her to focus inward. She excused herself from the table and wandered out onto one of the dome's balconies, hoping the cool night air would help clear her thoughts. As she gazed out over the alien city, the stars twinkling above her, a sudden flash of light blinded her. It wasn't physical, no one else seemed to notice, but in her mind, Eva was plunged into a vivid, overwhelming vision. She saw Earth, her home, burning beneath the onslaught of Xylith warships. Entire cities were reduced to rubble in seconds as powerful beams of energy rained down from the sky. The human military fought back, but their weapons were no match for the advanced Xylith technology. In her vision, Eva saw millions of people fleeing, screaming, as the alien invaders ravaged the planet. Amid the chaos, she saw herself hovering in the air above the carnage, surrounded by a storm of energy. Her powers had fully awakened, and she was fighting the Xylith alone, her body crackling with the same strange force that now resonated through Xylith Prime. She tore through their warships with blasts of pure energy, her eyes glowing white-hot with power. She was a living weapon, more powerful than anything Earth had ever seen. And yet, despite her strength, it wasn't enough. Earth still fell, and humanity was enslaved. The vision ended as abruptly as it began, leaving Eva gasping for breath. She clutched the railing of the balcony, her hands shaking. Sweat beaded on her forehead, and her heart pounded in her chest. What she had seen, it couldn't be real. It couldn't be the future. But deep down, Eva knew it was a warning. "Are you all right?" a voice asked from behind her. Eva spun around to see Zarvok standing in the doorway, his eyes narrowed in concern. She hadn't heard him approach, and for a moment, she wondered if he had sensed her distress. "I'm fine," she lied, wiping the sweat from her brow. "I just needed some air." Zarvok stepped closer, his gaze lingering on her as if he could see past her words. "You are not like the others, are you? There is something different about you." Eva's heart skipped a beat. Had he figured it out? Had her powers somehow revealed themselves? Before she could respond, Zarvok continued, "I've studied human biology extensively, and while your species is remarkable in its resilience, you are all limited. Yet I sense a kind of strength in you that I do not sense in your companions. Tell me, Eva, what are you hiding?" Her mind raced. She could deny everything, keep her secret buried, but the vision of Earth's destruction was fresh in her mind. If she kept quiet, millions could die. But if she told Zarvok the truth, what would he do with that knowledge? Could she trust him? Taking a deep breath, Eva made her decision. "I don't know what I am," she admitted. "But I know that I'm not like the others. I've had these abilities for as long as I can remember. I can control energy, manipulate matter, even alter time in small ways. And ever since I arrived here, something about this place has been making my powers stronger." Zarvok's eyes widened in fascination. Incredible, he whispered. You are more than just human. You are a mutant, a living conduit for power. Eva nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. I had a vision. A future where the Xylith invade Earth. They destroy everything, and I'm the only one who can stop them. But even with my powers, I couldn't save everyone. Zarvok's expression darkened. A Xylith invasion? That cannot be. Our people have no desire for war. I don't know what to believe, Eva said, shaking her head. But the vision felt real. I think there's a faction within your government, one that's hiding their true intentions. If they're planning to attack Earth, we need to stop them. For a long moment, Zarvok was silent, deep in thought. When he finally spoke, his voice was grave. I believe you, Eva. There are whispers among the High Council, rumors of dissent and hidden agendas. But this is far worse than I imagined. If your vision is true, we may not have much time. Eva felt a surge of relief. At least now she wasn't alone in this. What do we do? She asked. Zarvok met her gaze, his eyes filled with determination. We need proof. And I know where to find it. But if you're right, we'll be risking everything to uncover the truth. Are you willing to do that? Eva nodded without hesitation. I don't have a choice. If the Xylith are planning to invade Earth, we have to stop them. Zarvok turned to the doorway, motioning for her to follow. Then we begin now. There's no time to waste. As they disappeared into the shadows of the alien city, Eva couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into something far more dangerous than she could have ever imagined. The warning in her vision had been clear: the Xylith were coming, and only she had the power to stand in their way. But would it be enough? The underground halls of Calithrian were a stark contrast to the glowing beauty of the city above. The further Eva and Zarvok descended into the labyrinthine tunnels beneath the alien capital, the colder and darker it became. The hum of energy that had filled the air above was absent here, replaced by an eerie silence that set Eva's nerves on edge. Zarvok led the way with purpose, his long strides carrying him through the twisting corridors with confidence. They passed few Xylith down here, and those they did encounter barely glanced their way. The tunnels seemed reserved for maintenance workers and government officials, a hidden infrastructure that kept the glittering surface of Calithrian running smoothly. Eva stayed close behind Zarvok, her mind buzzing with tension. The vision of Earth's destruction haunted her, and she couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. This is where the real power lies, Zarvok murmured, almost to himself. The High Council's public face is just that, a facade. Down here, in the archives and intelligence centers, the true decisions are made. Eva had learned much from Zarvok in the short time since they had left the banquet. Though a respected scientist, Zarvok had long suspected that darker forces were at work within the Xylith government. He had heard whispers of secret agendas and factions vying for control, but nothing concrete until now. We're heading for the intelligence vault, Zarvok explained, his voice low. It's where the High Council stores all classified communications, strategic plans, and sensitive data. If there's any evidence of a conspiracy, we'll find it there. Eva's pulse quickened. And you think we can just walk in? Not exactly, Zarvok said grimly. But I have certain access privileges that should get us past the initial security. After that, we'll have to improvise. They reached a massive metal door embedded in the side of a narrow passage. Zarvok approached the console beside it, his long fingers tapping a series of commands into the alien interface. The door slid open with a quiet hiss, revealing a brightly lit chamber beyond. Inside, rows of glowing data terminals stretched across the room, each one humming with stored information. This is it, Zarvok whispered. The intelligence vault. Eva followed him inside, her heart pounding in her chest. As they approached the nearest terminal, Zarvok quickly interfaced with the system, his fingers gliding over the controls with practiced ease. I'll search the records for any mention of Earth, he said, his eyes scanning the alien script that appeared on the screen. If there's a plot to invade, it'll be here. Minutes passed in tense silence as Zarvok sifted through layers of encrypted data. Eva paced nervously, her senses on high alert. Her powers were stirring again, reacting to the cold, oppressive atmosphere of the vault. She could feel something lurking just beyond the walls, a presence watching them. Suddenly, Zarvok's fingers froze on the console. "I found it," he whispered, his voice trembling. Eva rushed to his side and peered at the screen. Her heart sank as she read the alien symbols that translated into a message clear as day: Phase 1 of Operation Conquest Earth. "They're planning to invade," Eva whispered, her stomach twisting with dread. Zarvok's face was pale. "It's worse than I thought. The invasion is imminent. They've been studying Earth for years, analyzing our defenses, our weaknesses. They've already begun constructing a fleet capable of wiping out your planet's military in a single strike." Eva's mind raced. The vision had been right. The Xylith were coming, and they were prepared to annihilate Earth. "We have to get this information to the human delegation," Eva said, urgency rising in her voice. "They need to know what's coming." Zarvok nodded, but before he could respond, a loud alarm blared through the vault. The lights flickered, and the door behind them slammed shut with a deafening clang. "They found us!" Zarvok cursed, his fingers flying over the console as he tried to disable the security system. Eva's powers flared in response to the danger. She could feel the surge of energy in her veins, crackling just beneath the surface, begging to be released. But she had to be careful. One wrong move, and she could destroy everything. The door on the far side of the room slid open, and a squad of Xylith soldiers stormed in, their weapons raised. At the head of the group was Archon Cray, his pale eyes glowing with cold fury. "So, the rumors were true," Cray said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "The human woman is more than she appears." Eva's heart pounded in her chest, but she stood her ground, her powers simmering beneath her skin. She had known this moment was coming, the moment where she would have to reveal what she truly was. Zarvok stepped forward, his voice pleading. "Cray, this isn't necessary. We've uncovered the truth. There's a faction within the government planning to invade Earth. We need to stop this before it's too late." Cray's lips curled into a cold smile. "You fool. There is no faction. The invasion is not a secret plot, it is our destiny. The High Council has already approved it. Earth is weak, and its resources will fuel our empire for centuries." Eva's blood ran cold. This wasn't just a conspiracy, it was an official decree. "You're making a mistake," she said, her voice low but filled with fury. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." Cray's eyes locked onto hers, amusement flickering in their depths. "Oh, I think I understand quite well, human. Your powers are formidable, yes, but you are still just one woman. One human woman against an empire. What can you hope to achieve?" Eva didn't respond. She didn't need to. The hum of energy that had been building inside her since they arrived on Xylith Prime was now at its peak. She could feel the pulse of the planet's energy networks, the electrical currents running through the very core of the city. The Xylith had been unknowingly feeding her powers since the moment she arrived. With a single thought, Eva released the energy she had been holding back. The air around her crackled with electricity, and the room filled with a blinding light as a shockwave of pure energy erupted from her body. The Xylith soldiers were thrown back like ragdolls, their weapons short-circuiting in their hands. The data terminals exploded in showers of sparks, and the room plunged into chaos. Cray staggered, his eyes wide with shock as he struggled to maintain his composure. "What dot are you?" he gasped. Eva's eyes glowed with white-hot power, her body radiating with an aura of raw energy. She stepped forward, her voice cold and steady. "I'm the one who's going to stop you." Cray's face twisted with rage, and he reached for a control on his wrist. "You'll die here, human. You can't fight all of us." Eva felt the power building inside her, stronger than ever before. She wasn't just a human anymore, she was something more, something the Xylith couldn't comprehend. She had become a living weapon, and they had no idea what they had unleashed. Before Cray could activate the alarm, Eva focused her energy on the door behind him. With a single wave of her hand, she tore it from its hinges, sending it crashing into the soldiers who were trying to regroup. "We need to go, now," Eva shouted to Zarvok, who was still recovering from the blast. He nodded, scrambling to his feet as the two of them made a break for the exit. The Xylith soldiers were already starting to recover, but Eva wasn't going to give them the chance to stop her. She unleashed another surge of energy, sending a pulse through the walls of the vault that short-circuited the power grid. The lights flickered and died, plunging the entire complex into darkness. Eva and Zarvok sprinted through the corridors, the sounds of shouting and alarms echoing behind them. They had the evidence they needed, but now they had to escape. Eva could feel the strain of using so much power, but she pushed forward, knowing that the fate of Earth depended on her. As they reached the surface, the cold night air hit them like a wave, and Eva glanced up at the sky. In the distance, she could see the glowing forms of Xylith warships, already preparing for launch. "We need to warn the human delegation," Zarvok panted, his voice filled with desperation. "We need to tell them what's coming." Eva nodded, her mind racing. They had uncovered the truth, but Cray and his forces wouldn't let them leave the planet alive. The invasion was coming, and time was running out. The trap had been set, but Eva was ready to spring it. The wind howled through the towering spires of Calithrian as Eva Norwood and Zarvok raced across the rooftops of the alien city. The Xylith capital was alive with alarms, and the glow of distant warships gathering in the sky loomed like a dark omen. Time was running out. The invasion of Earth was moments away from beginning, and Eva could feel the weight of the galaxy pressing down on her shoulders. "There's a transport bay just ahead," Zarvok said between heavy breaths, his usually calm demeanor shattered by the urgency of their flight. "If we can reach it, we'll have a chance to get back to the human delegation and warn them." Eva's mind buzzed with thoughts of the vision that had haunted her since she first set foot on Xylith Prime, Earth burning beneath the onslaught of the Xylith fleet, her friends and family lost in a wave of destruction. She had seen herself fighting against them, but even her powers hadn't been enough. Not then. But now? Now, things were different. Her abilities, once erratic and frightening, had grown stronger on Xylith Prime. The energy that had surged through the alien planet's infrastructure had fed her powers, making her feel as though she was more than just human. She was connected to something larger, something that transcended the boundaries of her own body. She had become a weapon, perhaps the only weapon capable of stopping what was coming. They reached the transport bay, a sprawling facility where sleek alien ships were docked in neat rows. Xylith guards patrolled the area, but they were scattered, their attention focused on the chaos erupting in the city. Eva could feel the growing tension in the air. The Xylith were preparing for war, but they hadn't anticipated an internal threat. "Wait here," Zarvok whispered, pulling her into the shadows. "I'll access the security system and clear us a path to one of the transports. We just need a few minutes." Eva nodded, keeping her eyes trained on the guards. Her powers hummed beneath her skin, ready to lash out if necessary, but she wanted to avoid drawing attention for as long as possible. Every second counted, and she couldn't afford to make a mistake. As Zarvok worked at the nearby terminal, Eva glanced up at the sky. High above, the massive Xylith warships were positioning themselves for the launch. Her vision flashed in her mind, the Xylith descending on Earth, their weapons tearing through human cities like paper. They were technologically superior, faster, and more powerful. Earth had no chance if the Xylith launched their invasion. A sharp noise behind her snapped Eva back to the present. Zarvok cursed under his breath as a group of Xylith soldiers rounded the corner, weapons drawn. "We've been compromised," he shouted. Eva didn't hesitate. She stepped forward, her eyes narrowing as she extended her hands. The energy inside her surged forward like a flood, crackling through the air and forming a protective barrier around her and Zarvok. The soldiers opened fire, their weapons releasing pulses of deadly energy, but the blasts dissipated harmlessly against Eva's shield. Her eyes burned white-hot as she unleashed her powers. With a single thought, she sent a wave of energy outward, knocking the soldiers off their feet and short-circuiting their weapons. They collapsed to the ground, stunned and defenseless. "We need to move now," Eva shouted, grabbing Zarvok's arm and pulling him toward the nearest transport ship. They sprinted across the tarmac, weaving between the alien vessels until they reached a small, sleek ship. Zarvok quickly accessed the control panel, and the hatch opened with a soft hiss. Eva glanced over her shoulder. More soldiers were already regrouping, and the alarms were growing louder. They didn't have much time. "Get us out of here," Eva urged, her voice tight with urgency. Zarvok nodded and hurried into the pilot's seat. As the ship's engines roared to life, Eva climbed into the co-pilot's chair, her heart racing. The transport lifted off the ground, its smooth hull slicing through the night sky as they sped away from the city. Below them, Calithrian glittered like a distant dream, but Eva couldn't shake the feeling that the nightmare was only just beginning. "Do you think the human delegation will believe us?" Zarvok asked, his hands gripping the controls tightly. "They've been so focused on peace, they won't want to accept the truth." "They'll have to," Eva said grimly, her gaze fixed on the approaching horizon. "Once they see the warships preparing to launch, they'll know what's coming. But even if they believe us, there's still the question of how we stop them." Zarvok's silence was answer enough. The Xylith fleet was nearly ready, and Earth's defenses were laughably inadequate compared to the technology of the alien empire. Even with Eva's powers, they were outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched. It seemed impossible to stop the invasion, unless she could find a way to turn the tide. As the transport approached the human embassy on Xylith Prime, Eva felt the hum of her powers growing stronger. She had learned much about her abilities since arriving on the planet. The energy that coursed through Xylith Prime was more than just technological. It was alive, a vast, interconnected network that stretched across the planet. It was this energy that had amplified her powers, and if she could tap into it fully, she might stand a chance. But it was a dangerous gamble. The power was overwhelming, and if she lost control, she could destroy everything, herself included. "We're almost there," Zarvok said, guiding the ship toward the embassy landing pad. "Are you ready?" Eva took a deep breath and nodded. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew one thing for sure: she couldn't let the Xylith invade Earth. The transport touched down, and Eva and Zarvok disembarked. The human delegation was already waiting for them, their faces etched with confusion and concern. Ambassador Grayson stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "Eva, what's going on?" "We've been hearing conflicting reports, Dash." "There's no time to explain," Eva interrupted. "The Xylith are planning to invade Earth. The fleet is ready to launch, and they'll be there in hours if we don't stop them." Grayson's eyes widened in disbelief. "What? That's impossible. We've been negotiating 4-. There's no negotiation." Eva snapped, her voice sharp with urgency. "This was never about peace. The invasion is already in motion. We need to act now, or Earth is doomed." The delegation fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Grayson, shaken but resolute, nodded. "What do we do?" Eva turned toward the sky, where the Xylith warships gleamed like deadly stars. She could feel the energy pulsing beneath her feet, the power of the planet itself, waiting for her to tap into it. "I'm going to stop them," she said quietly, more to herself than anyone else. "What do you mean?" Grayson asked, his voice uncertain. Eva closed her eyes, feeling the hum of power rising within her. She had to connect to the planet, to the energy that had been amplifying her abilities since she arrived. It was the only way. "Get everyone off the planet," she said. The human delegation, the civilians, everyone. I'm going to stop the fleet. Zarvok looked at her in alarm. Eva, you can't. The energy, it's too much. You'll burn yourself out. I don't have a choice, Eva said, her voice calm and steady. This is the only way. Without waiting for an answer, she stepped away from the group and knelt on the ground. She could feel the energy beneath her, flowing through the planet like a vast river. Slowly, carefully, she reached out with her mind, allowing herself to connect with the power. The moment she did, the world around her exploded with light. Eva gasped as the energy surged through her, overwhelming and all-consuming. It was as if the entire planet had come alive within her, every current of energy, every pulse of power flowing through her body. She felt herself expanding, her consciousness stretching beyond her physical form, until she was connected to the entire network of Xylith Prime. She could see the warships in the sky, their engines primed for launch. She could feel the energy coursing through them, the intricate systems that powered their deadly weapons. And with a single thought, she shut them down. The warships sputtered and died, their glowing engines flickering out as the power was drained from them. Eva's control was absolute, her will overpowering the vast network that fueled the Xylith war machine. One by one, the ships fell silent, their threat neutralized. But the power was too much. Eva could feel her body straining, her mind buckling under the weight of it all. The energy coursed through her like wildfire, threatening to tear her apart from the inside. Eva! Zarvok shouted, rushing toward her. She held up a hand, stopping him in his tracks. No. Stay back. She had to finish this. With every ounce of strength she had left, Eva reached out further, severing the Xylith's control over their fleet, over their planet. The invasion was over. But the power, it was too much. The last thing she heard was the sound of her own heartbeat, thundering in her ears, as the light consumed her. When Eva opened her eyes, the world was quiet. The warships hung motionless in the sky, their threat extinguished. The Xylith, stunned and defeated, watched in disbelief as their once mighty fleet crumbled. Zarvok knelt beside her, his face filled with concern. You did it, he whispered. You stopped them. Eva smiled weakly, her body exhausted but alive. She had survived. Earth was safe for now. But she knew, as she looked up at the distant stars, that the universe would never be the same. She was more than just a human woman. She was a force of nature, a living weapon. And the galaxy would soon learn not to underestimate her again.